to the system. And like I said in our introductory email, we pretty much, I think, have about 90% of what we need now. It's just there's one big screen we're going to concentrate on big time at the end, is where we're going to add a lot of fields so we can make sure and get any kind of a snapshot of balances, codes, or anything we need in there. And if we miss something, you guys, definitely jump on it and say, hey, wait a minute, we need this in there also. But anyway, where I'm starting, it's kind of backwards. At the bank level or at the officer level, we have reserve for bad debt allocations totaled in the system by grade. And we've had that, oh gosh, probably 15 years, and we enhanced it quite a bit back in 2008. And so that's where the system is at this point, except for the reserve calculation. We updated it once or twice. The OCC has, I believe, had 3 versions of it, and this is version 4 is what everybody's asking for now. So anyway, we'll go get out of that and move on. Go to meeting stuff's in my way. Okay, I'm going to pull up a loan that is pretty complex. It's our stress testing model loan with apartment complexes on it, all sorts of stuff going on. But the way the loan grades work, simple loan, complicated loan, doesn't matter. It's going to work the same. What we've done so far, or where we're at in the previous version of the OCC version of allowance for loan loss and leases calculation, is they stated that we needed a group. And so within LQAS right now, you can make a group, and the law says group. It doesn't say loan number, or I'm sorry, collateral code, purpose code, or anything like that. They're real vague about it, and that's another big problem we have with all of this. But anyway, we have a grouping, and then within that grouping, within the system, based on a pass loan all the way down to charge off or special allocation, you can step up your reserve allocation. So like in this example here, we're at 1% on pass, and then 0.55 on substandard, which is kind of heavy, and then 1 on special allocation that just fed back from how the system's set up now. So right now as it stands, once you come up with what these percentages are, they'll roll through the entire system. So the mechanism to calculate in total the reserve is in, and we're good with that. It's going to be fine. The problem with the new stuff is okay, well, we want it to determine what these factors are on their own, and we've got various things we have to pull from that, and that's why we sent out that, I think it was an ABA document we sent out a few minutes ago for y'all to cover, because it's a really good synopsis of what they think is coming and everything. But what we do is to get deeper into this, and when y'all, after the seminar, if y'all haven't seen this, you can do it on your system. All systems are good with what we're going to show you today. Anyway, I'm pulling up a grade, and here's the information we have on the grade. If we want to do a history, we can pull up the history, and this is the big deal here. This is where the historical charge-off stuff we need to derive all our information from exists. And this, like I said, this puppy's been in here at least since 2008, maybe earlier. If I hit that, then it brings this guy up. And what it currently has is what we had before and what we have now. And the reason why it's doing before and where we're at now is it's a basis for what we call a classification migration report. FDIC came up with that report back in the late 70s, maybe early 80s, and we automated that report again back in 08 or 07, something like that. And we needed this amount of information to say, are our grades getting better? Are our grades getting worse? What's going on with our allocations and all this kind of stuff from stepping through the full history of the grade on the loan. And so we have a historical stamp on all loan grades and loans right now. Now, kind of globally, we need to make sure that when Michelle's running your downloads that we do pop something in the loan grades, and the loan grade history is created in the end of day processing automatically, so we're going to need to double check all of that. The framework's in, everything is running and all that, but we need to have that in there. The big question here is, what are we going to add to it? We can make this screen larger, And just in the first pass of looking at what the rule is and all that, this is where everything is going to live for what we're going to do going forward. And I've got some examples of things that we might want to snapshot as of the day of a grade change, because then that way 2, 3, 4 years in the future we can look back at this and say, well, we had a loss or we had a hit here, and it's a percentage of this. And when I say a percentage of this, the loan current balance, the primary collateral code, the actual collateral value as of that day of the grade change, Fed code, purpose code, collateral code, borrower credit rating, the New York Stock Exchange average that day, NASDAQ that day, and S&P that day. The last few banks that I've demoed have been in agricultural areas, and the way the Coltick stock pricing piece works, and I'm guessing a few of these banks are on Coltick, Michelle? They're here?
Some may be. I don't know that, I don't know that a lot of them are.
Okay. Well,
that may be one piece that we need to get set up.
Right. Because if we have stock values, we'll need those in there, because what we'll get for the New York Stock Exchange, NASDAQ, and S&P dailies, we can get that out of Coltick for free. Also, all these things we're putting in, if you're on bank maintenance on Lqas, we issue an update. This all goes in for free. I've heard from several other consultants that all these companies are springing up all of a sudden selling this stuff as a solution, and you could buy a whole another standalone product for it. And like I said, when we roll this out, it's just going to be a standard feature of Lqas. Anyway, what we want to add to that, and I need to do some research on it, is we need a commodity pricing feed to go in, and on our end we don't need to change a thing, because all we need is a commodity ticker and a value, and it'll go in just like the stock valuation does. Once we get all that put into the system for the historical stuff, then we're going to start talking about calculations. And I think I mentioned this in the email, the next webinar may be like a year to year and a half out, because what we need to show you is kind of a midpoint of, okay, here's the calculations we came up with, here's the historical values we're tracking now. Are we on track, or have y'all heard something else, or does something else need to be done? Well, in this phase of what we're doing, I've pretty much covered everything that we need to cover on it. And like I said, I wanted everybody together to make sure we didn't miss anything, at least, like I said, in the fact gathering stage. Now, this kind of is and kind of isn't related to this. We are attempting to become a preferred vendor with ICBA, and there's only 30 of them nationwide. And if we get that, what I'm going to do next is try to talk to their lobbyists, because I'm sure they've got one with the Capitol or the House of Representatives, Senate, whatever, and start discussing this with them, because again, there are better ways to do this, and there's a lot easier ways to do this. And at least in the third version of the OCC's write-up, the first paragraph said this is a guess, or this is an estimate, and it all is. And the crazy thing is a missing document on a big loan, or a bad credit rating, or a bad economy taking a hit locally, is much more damaging than all the stuff they're looking at here. It's kind of like in the stress testing thing that they came out with. They were worried about commercial real estate 100%. Well, that's not right. Any of you guys out or near West Texas know what I'm talking about. The oil market is way worse than commercial real estate, or can be. And so they're, kind of like putting blinders on and just looking at one thing, and you shouldn't be doing it that way. But anyway, we'll see what we can come up with. Does this look like something you guys would use if we put it in the system? Do we need to even work on this? Because if we've got other things we can be doing, if we don't need to, if nobody's going to use it, we don't need to put it in. But I'm pretty sure, most everybody's going to need this. Anybody?
Hey, Chris, this is Barbara at Citizens Bank.
Hello.
Hi. So on this particular screen that we're looking at right now, what about adding the collateral value if it's like a real estate loan, from from one time period to the other.
Absolutely. Yeah, on this screen, we're going to put the current balance as of that day.
Okay.
We're going to put the primary collateral code as of that day, because in Lqas, it hardly ever happen, but it could, where you could flip your primary collateral code, and so we want to have the right one. We're going to put in the total collateral value on everything pledged on the entire loan. We're going to get the Fed code, purpose code, and collateral code. And right now we're kind of willy-nilly with the Fed code and purpose code. Those are custom fields that we bring in, and we might like uncustom those to make a hard-coded field on the customer side. Also, the borrower's credit rating, we'll put a hard-coded field on the customer record on that, and then again bring that over, just kind of copy our work. We'll bring that over and stamp it into this record every time something happens.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Would that make a complete picture as far as y'all can tell, or what y'all? I know there's been seminars and stuff for like a year, I guess 1 or 2 years on this. Plus there's like a group now. I think their annual meeting was in New Orleans a month ago, and it's such a big deal that like it's a nationwide convention now, and one of our other banks went to it.
This is Barbara at Citizens Bank again.
Huh?
So from this screen, are we going to be able to download it and do custom reporting and things like that?
Just like any other screen in the system. Cindy's on the phone. She could answer that. But yeah, absolutely.
Cool. That'd be good. That's nice.
Are you there, Cindy?
Yes, I am. Yeah, we could do a report in Excel so that you could, or in Crystal, that you could export out to Excel, and then you could do whatever you want to it. Or we could write custom reports for you, however you would like for them to be.
Can you email them to Irene for our board? Thank you.
Is Irene a person or a system?
Person.
Oh, okay. Well, there's so many things, terminologies, and abbreviations floating around now. I have no clue anymore. It's like just gone crazy. Way too many. Let me tell you guys, if I actually get to tell somebody what I think about how we can do this, what I think we should do is the banks have this thing called a CAMELS rating. It's 1 through 5, and it shows how good or bad your bank is. If you took that and some kind of regional economic indicator and multiplied those two puppies together and then had a factor, you're done as far as I'm concerned. Take whatever that factor is, total loans times those 3 numbers, and that would be the general ledger reserve for bad debts. And then maybe you have to run that quarterly or something like that, and that would do it. And what would happen is if your bank condition went down, then it's going to automatically kick in an increase in the reserve for bad debt requirement, or allowance for loan losses and leases requirement, whatever you want to call it. And then if your regional economy blows up and has a problem, then you need to allocate more into the reserve. And that blows completely by what this thing's asking for, and it'd be way more accurate. And it'd be just, it'd be like a 3rd grader could do it instead of a rocket scientist. But anyway, that's what we're working on and thinking about. And if you guys have if y'all know anybody high ranking with any of these big groups or lobby groups or anything like that, and y'all want me to talk to them, just let me know who to talk to and I will. And, I don't know how much pull I can have with them, but I'd like to try, because this is just crazy.
Or if you wake up in the middle of the night and say, oh my gosh, we need such and such field in there, just email me. This is Michelle. Because sometimes 2 hours later you go, I should have said, we really need this field, or we really need that. Don't hesitate to email it.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to try to have, when the next major update rolls out, probably at the end of this year, all of this stuff should be in here. So our historical stuff will start working. Because one of the things I heard was it kicks on in 2021 and you need 5 years of historical information. Now, I don't know if y'all heard anything different. I'd like to know if you did. because that means 2016 is when all this needs to be kicked on. And I'm talking to several banks right now that either their CPA said forget about it because things are going to change, which they could, but we don't want to operate under that mode at all. Because if we're wrong and we get to 2021 and we've done nothing and the bank's done nothing, then we're all in trouble. And so we're going to, pursue on like it, as if, it's going to be done.
I guess. Hey, Chris.
Yeah.
Citizens Bank again. On this particular screen on the comments field, how big is that field?
Ooh, I don't
like
know.
I was thinking maybe using that for, our officers could make a comment on, what's the status, what's the plan as far as getting it upgraded or,
Sure. And that's the history record. It may pull down from this record. Do you know, Michelle?
I'm going to tell you just, oh yeah, I am on mute. I mean, I'm off mute. Let me look it up.
This is the allocation related to that loan.
I'm pretty sure that the comment field in the loan grade itself, like one of the examples I had in here, and Michelle thought it was so funny, it said the OCC made us do this, and she thought it was a joke, and I said, well, no, when I was an examiner, that's how it was. You catch something and the bank disagrees with it, but that's too bad. This is what it's going to be. And so they put that in there. But I'm pretty sure that the comments at the loan grade level, when you put the comment in, gets stamped back into the history record.
Oh,
If
okay.
it doesn't, we need to fix it to
Yes,
make it do that.
It does. It does. Because that's where I saw it was when we were looking at the history.
Oh, okay.
See if this is going to
You looking at how big it is now?
I am.
What's your reserves based on all of this analysis? What's your reserve calculation? Is it going to total? Chris, so is all of this information going to pull into a report that that supports the loan loss reserve balance or the loan loss balance?
Yes. That's why I pulled this report. I think, Cindy, if I pull it, is it the bank summary that has the reserve stuff in it?
I think so. I'm not sure. I haven't looked at some of those reports in a while.
Bank performance report. The good news is, and I'll say this in demos every time, is our job is to make sure the data is in the system, whether it's in the report or not. That's not as important. I mean, if you have a report that's needing data that we don't have, that's a big deal. That's horrible. And so doing it the other way around to make sure we have the data, and we do have, even at the bank level, the reserve totals. And we did a external review for Gina Bay's bank a long time ago, Virginia National, and we actually, in the report, it stated reserve in the LQAS is this, general ledger reserve is this, and how much is it, and what's over, and all that kind of stuff.
We need to.
It's got it in here, but it's not showing anything. Oops.
Okay, going back to the comments, they're 50 characters.
Oh, okay. But yeah, absolutely. In fact, if I go back to the officer performance report, because when we keep up with this information, this is all carried from, it starts at the customer, well, it goes from the loan, then the totals go to the customer record, then it goes to the officer record and gets totaled there, then it goes to branch or department and gets totaled there, then it goes to region, then it goes to division, then it goes to bank. And so it's a gigantic pyramid thingy. Some of these banks will balance their what's downloaded into LQAS to the core monthly. And that makes sure that, for every loan on the core is in LQAS and all that, and you're in balance. And once you're, and where it goes, where it whacks out, where it messes up is if you don't, let's say you have an officer code and it's wrong in the setup in LQAS, then stuff may go into that officer code, or maybe it's going into a branch or department that doesn't exist, and so it's just broken, and it just starts throwing whatever those totals are, they're gone. They don't make it up to the top. And so all that has to be connected correctly. Once it is, it's fine. And if it doesn't work, once it's fixed, it's fine. And the historical stuff is kept at the loan grade level, so we're good. Come on. I can't tell. Oh, it's twirling. I did a Windows update right before the meeting, and man, this box is so slow. But yeah, this is why I brought this report up, because the reserve allocations, even at the officer level, it brought them up from the loan level and pulled them in right here. And, oh, and here's your bank totals. And then it's showing the officer totals, and it's showing the percentage. Oh, and that's another question I have is, okay, let's say we come up with this calculation, because historically what we've done is we worry about more when it gets worse. In other words, a doubtful loan is going to have more allocation on it than a watch. Well, with this new method, is it all the same? And that's something I fully disagree with. In other words, if this is just to come up with a percentage on all past loans, I can see it. But once we get over that, we need to worry about, well, if it goes to substandard, well, we'll throw in, let's say it's 3% or something horrible like that. It needs to be 5%. We need to add to it. And LQS right now, as it stands, can do that. So we still be good there for the stuff in the future. Any other questions?
On the RFBD allocation,
Huh?
it would probably be helpful to have totals, or is that somewhere else?
It's right here.
No, the grand total.
Oh, to get you back to the whole bank number.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so then we can compare
Yeah, exactly.
total GL for loan loss reserve.
Right. Let me go lunch. I'm having to move my cursor around. I have this GoToMeeting bar that's blocking some of my stuff, so I can't see what I'm doing.
Okay, Chris, stop just a second. If on the GoToMeeting bar, if you'll click the arrows that point toward each other, it will move that out of your way.
Oh, I'm good. So I'm going to launch the Windows version so we can go into some setup screens. Because we may show our work here. I'm not sure. I know it's in there. There it is. So this is reading the table, showing the allocation bank-wide by grade. And so it takes Cindy like 10 or 20 minutes to make a report listing all of this and putting a total on the bottom.
That is what's at the bottom of those reports.
Oh, okay. Well, on the bank summary, it didn't have it, but that didn't, I was probably running the wrong report.
Yeah, but on the officer performance it is, and I can just do a grand total of all the allocations and all that to add it to the bottom. That's no big deal.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the hard part was all the computations to get to this. That's where like 99% of the effort has been made, is the system coming up and getting these totals and by grade and by customer and all that pulled together and brought to this screen. Because after that, then yeah, she just lists it and totals it and done. And so we'll have it. Because yeah, I get where you're coming from. Because after this, you need to reconcile this to your general ledger, and that's another, I guess, point of contention is, should general ledger be equal to this? Should it be higher? Should it be lower? And all that kind of stuff. In our report, our exam report we did, as long as the GL reserve was higher, we were good. Because if the GL reserve was lower and we were asked, let's say we're asking for 3 million and you had 2.7 million in the GL, then we need to ask you for 300,000 additional into the reserve. And so as long as you're, near it or under it, then you're fine. Any other questions? As y'all can see, most of the stuff's done. It's just how are we going to express as a percentage historically what we have. But the hard part is getting the losses and all those buckets and all that kind of stuff. Those are all handled and done and have been for years. And so we just need to feed in some more information in it so we can get our percentages.
Okay, I have a thought. If the GL in here needs to be equal to or less than, I mean, the reserve for bad debt, if it needs to be equal to or less than the GL, wouldn't you want to keep historically what the GL is if you're keeping at certain times? Wouldn't you want a history record of what your GL RFBD is?
Not a bad idea. We could hang it off of this, I guess, but would this be like a standard month-end procedure for you guys to just go into LQS and key the number in? That's what this screen's for. And again, it's been in here for, gosh, almost 10 years now. But what this screen is built to do is get stuff that LQS doesn't have a clue about. It doesn't understand or know that total assets, capital, what the bank loan limit is, what the actual regulatory loan cut is, and what the reserve is. And once you tell it that, then it can start saying, well, I have this percentage of that total here, because all the numbers that make the total we know about. It's just we didn't know what to divide it by, and now we do. But yeah, I guess, and that'd be another decision to make is when do we revisit this? Do we revisit it annually, quarterly, or whatever to refresh any numbers that need to be input and any numbers that need to be rerun to rebuild your historical percentages and that kind of stuff? Jot that down, because that might be a big question for our next meeting. Any other questions? Well, I guess we can go our merry ways then. But like Michelle said, if you guys think anything, come up with anything, have any questions, let us know, because this is an excellent time for us to be talking about this when we're working on that portion of the program. It's the best time in the world to open it up and say, you know, what if we just throw this one more thing in? It's not that big a deal at all for us to do that. And so just let us know what you want and what you need, and we'll get it in. Well, thank all you guys for coming.
Everybody have a great day.